So before I jump into the session today, so what you're going to talk about APIs and how do you manage and catalog your Java APIs and all of the stuff. I just want to quick I should say a quick marketing around the SoloCon that we're going to do. It's a free conference that you can register yourself. It's happening between March 8th to 10th, and lots of workshops and other things lined up, including certificates that you can do for the workshop that you attend. Please do register yourself. I think if you go to the site there, solocon.io, that you see at the bottom of the screen, I'll paste the links on the meetup page as well once I'm done with the session so that you can register yourself. And I'll be happy to see you all on any of the workshops that's there, and then get yourself certified on multiple things, right? On Istio and then eBPF, all these things are some niche technologies that are coming up in the cloud native world of things, right? With that, so I want to go and say what we're going to see today, right? So obviously, we are going to, the topic of today is like, how do we catalog, manage, publish, and possibly monetize your APIs, right? So that's what is going to be the topic of today. And especially I'm going to, so when I say APIs, I'm going to tell you like from a Java API perspective. So that's not going to be a big difference if it's going to be Java API or a Golang API in a microservice world. But it'll still touch upon those things like why it is important, how you choosing a right framework becomes a very important to your productivity and your faster time to market kind of things. And then obviously, these require a platform to deploy, obviously, your cloud native applications. We'll go and see how we get it deployed on Kubernetes. And then we'll see how you use Gloo Edge and Gloo Portal. We'll talk about these two products in a second. These are all again open source community projects, and also we have an enterprise version as well, which is supported by Solo. And finally, how do we get all these things knitted together and do a CI/CD, or in other words, I call it GitOps, using Argo CD and Tecton CD. Okay, that's going to be the talk of the day, and how we can make your Java APIs fit into these scheme of things so that like you can move from development to production pretty quickly. So that's going to be the focus of today. So I just shared one slide, a quick overview of what we are and what the thing we do here. So this is a company which is a startup just started 4 years ago, and it's mainly concentrates on application networking platform. I'll talk about what is that in a second. So we are a unicorn now, and as Servicas told Servicas, we are also hiring. I pasted the chat, the open positions thing on the chat. Please feel to check them out. And if you see something you are interested in, please do drop me a note. I'll be happy to refer you. Um, and what we do as part of our thing is, right. So let me skip the slide. Um, is something related to microservices, right? So because what basically happened is like the way we build the applications totally transformed, right? If you take last 5 years for that matter, or even more than that, to be honest. But the momentum started last 5 years ago, right? And where we did was like we moved from the way we build the application totally changed, right? So we were there on monolithic, then we went to microservices. We were on-prem always, and then we went to cloud. We were building on VM and OS, and then we changed to containers, right, on Kubernetes. And then we had large teams, one big, huge team doing the job, and then we dropped them down to what we call as two pizza teams, like what Amazon says. And then we mentored agile teams, right, where we keep moving on the people. And these things also fundamentally changed many other things, right, such as like how do I, so once I deploy my distributed computing or APIs across, right, could be Java or any API. But let us now talk about only Java. We assume that we are writing Java APIs today, right? So when I do API management and when I do application, when I do distributed computing, the problem now comes in how do I make these things talk with each other, right? That's what I call a service to service communication, right? And then we also need to have a team that can be united together to build and develop the application platform and maintain them. And more than all, since it's going to be distributed computing, it's going to spread across geographies and computes and data centers. We need to have a way by which we need to encrypt the traffic, right? So that the traffic is not let loose for somebody to sniff in, right? And more than all, now if you see, if we put all these things together, it leads to a concept like we saw about infrastructure as code and all these things, right? And then now we want to also need to have something called as a policy as a code, right? So that like I get a uniform policy applied across your data centers. Now, if you imagine for a second, which is now we moved into monolithic to microservices because we had a lot of problems with microservice monolithic applications, and then we went into microservices because we need to be faster into market, respond to business, etc. But if you think for a second, this also leads to some amount of complexity, right? How do I actually build my application? How do I make my application communicate with each other? How do I apply my policy as said beyond? And then how do I end of the day maintain all these things easily, right? For our ops guys to do. So the lead for these things is right. The way we do all these things is just because there were too many changes to right. So for example, like the microservices increase your operational challenges, how effectively you leverage microservices, and there were delegation and performance issues. How do you find it out? And where the performance issues happening? Where is the bottleneck? So we had so many challenges coming up and again, right? This is because of one reason, like how do we actually went ahead and deployed my application, right? So like for example, like I had on-prem to cloud providers, and each cloud provider has its own unique way of doing things, monitoring things, etc., etc. So these led to what we call as something which we in Glue or in Solo, we call them as application networking platform, right? So the basic idea of this application networking platform is to give you all those things which you talked about in a few slides ago, right? How do I make all these things knit together, talk together, security, policy as code, etc., right? And we want a very high performing, effective way of doing stuff, which is already proven by people who are people are using that for quite some time. We want such a thing to be in for us to make to do these jobs, right? And should also be easy for the end of the day for developers, right? So that's what you said. We have three products right now. All these are community projects as well, and then we have enterprise version. So I'm going to the one is what we are going to see today is only Glue Edge. That's on right side of this, which is nothing but an L7 API gateway built using Envoy proxy. So obviously Envoy proxy, you know that it came from Lyft, Lyft as an Uber kind of thing. So they contributed this, and it's a CNCF project right now. So it's a L7 proxy that can be injected as a sidecar to multiple Kubernetes deployments to make these things work. Okay. And then we also have another project called Gloo Mesh, so which basically talks about service mesh, right? The enterprise service mesh. You know, service mesh like Istio and all these stuff. But what we do with Gloo Mesh is we support those upstream projects, Istio upstream N-4 directly to help people adopt Istio service mesh as part of their deployments. Okay, so you'll not see about that. Probably I'll talk with Savik to see if we can do another session exclusive on Gloo Mesh side of things, right? But today we'll talk about only API gateway. So I write an API and I have to publish the API, and how do I make it available for people to consume it in just fraction of seconds, right? In a cloud native platform like Kubernetes. And we also have other pieces sprinkled up on top of that, like we're getting the GraphQL support. In that we'll deduct the APIs upstreams, what we call it. I'll talk about that in a second. So we have a GraphQL support, a new eBPF, if people are aware of that. That's something which is getting the attention of the Cube platform industry, like where we are going to do these kind of without sidecar kind of thing, right? How do I make application talk with each other? The same, exactly same application networking, but in a different way, right? More of a Linux kernel kind of thing. I just know very little about it, so I'll just skip that for now. So that's what we do. I think that's why we call us an application networking platform, because we are making applications to talk with each other effectively and securely. Okay, that's those are two very important things that we know. And how do we actually maintain these things? Probably get there some developer extensions. One of the extensions that we're going to see today is the developer portal. The moment we drop the developer portal, like you get your applications available to the end user who can try that out using those APIs. Okay, we'll see about that during as part of the demo. All right. So, so we understood a very basic thing, right? What is the application networking platform is, right? So for APIs, so when you talk about APIs, I have the APIs and all these things. But before we dwell into writing APIs, how do I take and deploy my APIs? Let's try understanding few things that the very basic things about, right? What does an API lifecycle and requirements looks like? Okay. This is a very standard chart that you might have seen in many places. That's from Rapid API. I put the link from there, which is a source for that. So what you're going to see today is more on the left side of things, right? That's going to be the publishers, so the API publishers. So we are going to be the API publisher who's going to publish the API, but we're going to start from very basic things. Okay, we're going to start from design. Obviously, we'll not cover mock. We'll develop, test, and deploy. Obviously, locally we test it, and then also containerize and deploy on Kubernetes and deploy it, and make that application also available to the end user for them to consume. Okay, so this is a very standard API lifecycle that you see across any API products you see in the market. But we need to cover all these things. But what we are going to see today is like what all the different techniques that we can put together. Obviously, people would have been doing this in a various different ways. But what you are going to see is we are going to see more cloud native, more Kubernetes way of doing things. Like, and again, getting Java do the same stuff in that way is what's going to be the core topic of today. Okay. Um, so before we see what is these, right? How do we go into each of these phases that we listed on the API publisher side of things? Obviously, as I told earlier, so probably we can secure until then, and then probably we will not manage our API consumers as of now. Okay, so we'll not be seeing that today. That's a different topic altogether. So we'll just see on the API publisher side of things. But before we go there, I want to throw a few things out, right? Whomsoever on this chat or anybody who's doing this. So you'll be one of these personas in your organization when you with respect to the API, right? So when you develop an API, it will be directly called as an API, or it could be called as a different name, right? But you could be one of these persons. For example, I could be Daisy who takes the requirements and she kinds of does this API specs, right? And that could be an app owner, obviously, since you're going to have microservices, small little apps. There's going to be an app owner, and that's going to be an API developer like us who is going to write the APIs in Java. And then there's going to be a GitOps admin. We'll talk about a little bit of GitOps soon. But just imagine like this is somebody who's going to take and put your code into production, right? And there's going to be a security admin. Obviously, is going to take care of doing your job, like, okay, who can access what, give you an API access key, login credentials so that you can just go to all this stuff. And finally, the person who pays us, right? That's going to be an API consumer, right? He's going to consume our APIs. But this could be any of one of these personas, right? Today's talks will concentrate about only on these personas, right? How we are going to make this. So we'll see how these personas plays an important role. The whole idea of me getting this persona inside this is right because you might be one of them. You might be one of those personas who might be doing this work in your organization, so that now we can go back and relate. Okay, where Java fits into my scheme of things, where Kubernetes fits into my scheme of things, where GitOps comes, right? So that it's easy for you to go and pick the right tools of your choice for your organization and stitch them together so that you can do an effective API management, right? You can do all the stuff which you're going to talk today very easily. All right. I'll take a quick pause to see if there is any questions, or else like we'll go ahead and do this. I'll probably saw one question from Sanjay. Glue says traffic was egress. Okay, that's a good topic to talk. Sanjay, I'll have that discussion at the last because there's a bit of details I need to give on that. Thanks for asking that question. I'll come back to that. So I don't think so. Any other thing is right now. Okay, so let's go back to the slides. Great. So, but how does an API deployment look like, right? So because API deployment looks like two ways, right? I categorize them into two things. One is an external and an internal API deployment. Okay, so what are these basic two things? So if you're on the outside, if you see overall, both of these API deployments take and share the same life cycle, right? For example, I take from the requirements, I go to the API, convert the API into code, and then package the deployment and make the deployment available through a gateway so that my consumer can consume it. Okay, so that's going to be the B2C flow, right? Obviously, the top one is B2C, which is slow to change because there is a lot of parameters comes into picture. I need to do API versioning. I need to see people who tell the people about the deprecation of APIs. And then I need to go ahead with a lot of approvals so that my existing consumers are not affected, ask the consumer feedback, etc., which is technically very slow, but you'll see how we can make it fast. That's the external API, right? External facing where we charge money and we can also monetize on those things as well. The same flow can be used to do an internal API, right? There could be business units within an organization which wants to consume the API. In some cases, we want to cross-charge the business units so that you know like how many people are consuming what, so that they pay for your maintenance of these services within internally. Okay, so that is what is kept, but this is faster to change, right? Because I start developing something, I go say, hey, can you add this field? Can you add this API? Can you add this method, right? And then that goes into a change, and then that's implemented, right? It's quite easier, quite faster to move than your external APIs. So if you take any organization who's developing APIs, the APIs will definitely fall into one of these categories. It's going to be external or an internal API, right? And the steps is also going to be same, right? What I depicted the steps here are more from a cloud native point of view, right? How do I take my applications, because that's where we are in today. So how do I take my applications? How do I package my applications? How do I write code? The right code, in this case, it could be Java APIs, it could be Golang APIs, or it could be Python, anything you want, right? There is no restrictions in the microservice world. And then packaging, that's a uniform packaging, which we call containerized, and then take and deploy to an application platform, right? And then we have a gateway like Ingress, Traffic, all this gives you a lot of gateways. And then we are going to use these gateways to kind of expose these APIs to the outside world or even to the internal consumers and charge them end of the day. So that's where you're going to get the benefits. Or even sometimes we also wanted to try these APIs, giving to the internal users, hey, this is the contract that I'm going to publish. Can you please verify if it helps your business or something like that? I want to get a quicker feedback of how your APIs looks and evolve over the time. All right. So this is where is going to be our starting point, right? So that's where we need to categorize our APIs, whether it's going to be external or internal, so that there's a lot of other things comes into picture. Obviously, you see the personas sitting on each thing, each phase of these API development, right? You have Daisy, you have the other guy Ellis there, you got Sam. So all these guys are involved. So which means that it's again, if you go back to the previous slide where I was talking to you about, your team is pretty small, right? That's why we're talking about how we actually develop the APIs. If I imagine earlier, there could be a business unit, there could be somebody else, XYZ, there could be different business units involved, which makes the process totally complicated, right? Because I have to go through a lot of approvals to get my API released. I cannot do it independently. But with us moving to microservices, from monolithic to microservices, and we do the way of development, now what comes to us is that we can have a small team so that the communication chain is much smaller, much quicker, and much faster, and we can go faster to market, right? That's where we get in this. We can also going to make this B2C also perform a little bit more faster, right? With going through all the required steps, but still faster. All right. So with this, what happens right now is it leads to me to other thing, right? So we know like, okay, I have to do these two types of API developments. Any one of these things, right? It could be external or internal, right? But now, once we do this, once we have this knowledge of what you're going to develop, my thought right now is like, how do I actually go and develop? What is required for me to get started, right? The very first step is that I need in any API Swagger or Open API spec. So why do we put this restriction here? It's nothing a restriction. We're just making the people to follow a standard. The moment I say you follow a standard, right, it becomes easy for the tools to kind of take them up and use them up whenever you want to do. That's why we're going to see how Gloo is going to use this more effectively so that your APIs are into production and into the external consumers in flash of second. So to do that, everybody has to talk the same language, right? Something which everybody can understand. So that's why Java is very, very good at doing since J2E days, standardizing APIs, standardizing your specs and everything. That's exactly what is required here also, right? There's nothing going to change from a Java developer mindset, right? Because I'm going to write a Java API following the standard. So I'll be getting an output which also follows the standard. So I'm good there, right? So that's exactly what you're going to do. All I need for API design and development is that I'm going to go use something which generates me an open API or a Swagger spec. Okay. So I'm just going to flip a few slides before to show this one, right? That's where we come to this design and develop, right? So I'm going to have a design from requirements that's going to be spec. And then I'm obviously can mock. I'm just going to skip that piece. I'm going to develop this, right? So once I develop this, obviously my spec is going to be available for me. I'm going to do design, test, and deploy, right? We're going to see those things as well as part of this. The very first thing, design, and then make it available, make the spec available, right? That's exactly what we're going to do with here. So take this API and make it available for you, all right? To do that, let me quickly jump into a quick, I should also call this a demo for that sake. So let me go here to my demo screen. You see here. So this is an API which I wrote in Quarkus. You can write it in Spring Boot. You can write it anywhere. Obviously, people, if you're not aware of Quarkus, let me go and show you the Quarkus thing as well. Quarkus. So this is the open source project from Red Hat. I'm carrying my Red Hat legacy still. So you can go, I just pasted that on the chat. So it helps you to get quick started. There's a lot of videos and other things available for that. I'm not going to go jump into details of this, but super easy, right? Just like how you start at springboot.io kind of thing. You can just do the start with Quarkus as well, and then do all a lot of things, okay? So let's not go there. So what I'm going to talk to you today now is, I wrote a very simple API. My API is basically, it's called a Fruits API. That's a very standard example I take for all these things. So it's backed by database, obviously, where I'm going to store my API. And then if you see my API has a bunch of methods, right? So these are REST API, end of the day. So I'm just going to get some fruits and then add a fruit, delete a fruit, all these things, right? I'm going to do all these stuff up there, okay? As I told earlier, it's going to be backed by a thing, right? So this follows JAX-RS spec. So which means that using Quarkus, or even you can use Spring Boot as well, to whichever is convenient for you. When you do all those things, what you're going to get is that these APIs are going to get and run for you pretty quickly, and also generate the spec that we talked about a few minutes ago, right? And let me go and show that for you. So I have this application running. So let me go to the services here. So I have my API running it locally. See here. So let me make my screen a little bit bigger if that helps. So I just inserted a bunch of fruits here. So if I go to my database and then open the query for the database, and you should see a lot of fruits coming up here, right? So the editor is going to get you some let's say fruits. Come on, the streaming. All right, let's view from the API. Okay, so let's do this one. Okay, so all right, so it takes a bit of time, obviously. You see a bunch of fruits that got inserted into my DB table. I'm going running a PostgreSQL database behind the scene. And then once I do this here, so let me go to my browser window, and then I have Quarkus gives you what is called a dev UI, where you can configure a lot of other things. But for today's topic, right, let's think only about APIs, right? So I'm going to get an open API spec. So which is basically is going to get you a Swagger JSON, right? So if I'm going to click on this, this is going to give me a for me, let me go. All right, right. So it gives you a Swagger JSON. Awesome. So I'm not going to save that. Let's go to this Swagger UI, right? So I'm on a development mode. I should also be able to see a Swagger UI end of the day. So it gives me a Swagger UI also here. And we can see all the APIs and all these things here, right? So this is fine, right? As of now, we are going to do a development. So my Quarkus application that I developed is able to get me all the stuff that I deployed right now. I can just go try this out. And if I give execute, I should get a JSON data here of all the fruits that's running in the thing. So I'm just going to do that right now. Okay, you see all the set of fruits that's there right now. That's what you did here. That's the default fruit. Obviously, we can go get all the fruits as well. So these are a bunch of methods that we are trying out here. So what I'm trying to say right now is that I'm still writing a Java code end of the day. So my Java code has got this framework, whatever framework you're writing behind the scenes. Could be it could be Spring Boot, or it could be Quarkus, anything. So that's going to generate you a Swagger API. That's going to serve as our very first element, or I should say a resource or artifact that is required for us to integrate that with any given tools. Okay. So this is not the way we are going to deploy the application, right? So I'm just going to quit this for the sake of memory. I'll come back to this. I'll just stop these things here so that it says some amount of memory for me. I stop the applications here. So we are generating this application. It's going to give me the Swagger. That's all you need to remember. I'll share these project links as part of the resources slide. You can just go check what is there in the project. Okay. So we are good here. So we just have the APIs is generating stuff for us and then giving some stuff to us. Okay, we are good here. Fantastic. So now that's the very first thing which you want to do, right? So I'm just going to go here. So let me go back to my slides and then start presenting this up again. Great. So for what we saw is that we found a way. So we used a framework as good as that. We use a Java framework which can do the job for us, generate an open API spec. That's exactly what we need for this, right? That's what we saw on the last slide. I have a spec. I need to write a fruits API, and then I give it to a developer. So, okay, I need to have get default fruits add methods on this API. I gave it to Alice. She did well, and she used Quarkus here or any kind of Java framework end of the day and generated the API and published the API using JAX-RS so that people can consume it. And eventually, the underlying framework also generated us as open API spec or a Swagger spec, right? I'm sorry, the Swagger JSON. So this is going to serve as an input for any tools that's based on Swagger JSON to give you what you're going to see, like how to manage, catalog, and do all our APIs. All right. So we saw that about now. So now we are ready with the API, right? That's what we saw. We have a Swagger JSON that gives us a job, and we are going to use the Swagger JSON to go and do this job for us. We are ready with the API. And now we need to have a way by which to catalog and put this API, right? Put this API into production or even into a QA or a dev or whatever kind of thing, so that your cross-platform teams can go and consume them. All right. That's where Gloo Portal comes into picture, right? The Gloo Portal is a kind of it integrates with API like Gloo Edge, which is the Envoy-based L7 proxy, the API gateway. It's going to integrate with that. And it also gives you it also has a facility by which it can extract the APIs, right, from your Swagger JSON, and then kind of publish those APIs for people to consume it. Okay, that's what Gloo Portal does. Okay, that's where your manage and catalog, your cataloging kind of things comes into picture, so that you can give this URL or access to another team, another business unit, or even external consumer or external partner who might be there, and then they can see what APIs you have and then subscribe to them, and they can use APIs as well. Okay, and it's based on Open API standards. It's Kubernetes native, which means that I can deploy it on cloud. I can integrate with Istio as well if you want to do Servicemesh, and then it also integrates API gateway like Glue Edge. That's what the demo we're going to see today. And then it's again a self-service, right? I don't need to rely on anybody to go and give it to me. We'll see that when we actually deploy the stuff. I'm just going to go to my API and say, okay, log in with my credentials. I should be seeing the APIs which I have an access for and start using the APIs. All right, fantastic. So that's what we did, right? So we can also do the how the APIs can be used. We say how this API should be used, whether it's for public or it's for internal. You can control those things, and you can also do load balancing and all these things backed by Glue Edge API gateway. And I can also do manage APIs, so which means to say I can also do MTLS, encrypting of traffic, and all the standard stuff that we want to have, or integrate with OAuth. So these things are quite common things that we have, right? So you'll be wondering like why I'm talking all these things from an API perspective. So what is big that developer portal is doing, right? Because if you see all these stuff, most of these things are boilerplate, except that you change few parameters, few configurations, and all these stuff, right? For that, earlier what we need to do is that we need to have someone dedicated resource go do all this job by himself, right? You can need to be all these kind of what they call as networking, wiring kind of stuff. So we took out all those things from a physical human and to put everything on our learnings into this portal product. And now the product can basically go and do all these jobs for you the moment I get a Swagger spec. All I need is a Swagger spec to do this job, and then everything goes as per the thing. And you will be having admin console where you can still go and configure stuff, which is available. But we're taking away all these things, which means that my developer can now take his or her APIs into production without much fuss. Okay, just generate the spec and then it gives a spec. All right. Um, and then also we just documentation, versioning, and all these things, which becomes, if you remember in the few slides earlier, we talked about B2C. The B2C is technically got slow because we want to have versioning. We want to be careful about what versions release. It does not break, backward compatibility, etc., etc. So now all those things will be alleviated because we can version the APIs automatically and expose only those versioned APIs. So we have ways to do that. I'll show that once we see the demo. All right. And that's where you get a developer demo, published APIs in one place, subscribe it, use your login, and then we are going to see CI/CD GitOps model. We'll see that how I take my APIs, how I can knit all these things together and get them into production second, right? And this is going to be a consumer. Okay. The consumer is now, okay, so where should I go look out my APIs? It has an URL, it's a CLI, or it's an API. So now we give you a portal. You can go there, log in himself, see the APIs that is available, use the APIs which he wants, and then he can start doing whatever you want, right? And he can also give a feedback, or he can also give a query or feature request to the respective company or organization where he's using the APIs from when he needs an API. So everything could be done at one place, and then it can also be branded end of the day. Okay, so I'm just going to do this and brand the APIs and give it to the public, right? It could be not only public, it could be internal, right? Business unit to business unit kind of stuff. Okay. Great. So I'll just skip these slides. So this is for your offline read, what features Gloo Portal gives you. Like it gives you self-service. It can control your traffic. We'll see that as part of the demo. Authentication. We'll also see that as part of the demo. Is just see a basic authentication. Uses Open API documentation. That's what you're going to see. We already have Open API document via our microservice, a Java microservice that we wrote. So I'm going to see how we can leverage that to get that API into production. Custom branding. We talk about cloud native architecture, runs on Kubernetes. So you can run on any cloud of your wish. Istio support if you want, a service mesh support, and also it also has further other service mesh supports also. But Istio is one prominent one, and then Glue Edge if you just want only API gateway. I don't want service mesh. I don't want other fuss. I just want only API gateway. So it kind of gives you all these things bundled together as one single product on top of your cloud area, right? So I'm going to skip this one for a second. Again, how do I get these things? If you are Kubernetes aware, if you know Kubernetes, I hope that everybody is on today is all Kubernetes guys. If you know all these stuff, then it means that end of the day, I just need to write bunch of more CRDs custom resource definitions, what we call in Kubernetes world, and get all these things done in fraction of seconds, right? That's all we do, right? We just do this, apply this, things should be ready for you in few seconds. So that's easy as that. So we write an API product, we write and develop an environment. I'll talk about these things in a second. So API doc is nothing but from where I get these Swagger JSON. This is how we connect your Swagger documentation to your portal, right? Which Swagger documentation is connected to this portal. And then we group all these API docs into a particular environment, right? How do you expose that to the outside world? Okay, that's what we call it. It could be dev, QA, prod, internal, etc., etc. And then we generate the API doc, which is nothing but API product, where we define all these documentations is getting used. We refer to the products API docs, and we version them as well, right? Whatever version. For example, you see here, I just do a version v1 going to my product, and then we publish v2, and then finally we can have a portal that basically uses development environment and which also has the versions that needs to be used. So we tie up all these things together right now, saying, okay, I have an API doc, I have an API product, I have an environment, I have a portal. So just all these things is by just few CRDs, right? Nothing more than that. All right. And once you have this, the what next comes to our thing is that how do I consume my API? Obviously, we get a portal. Right now, I have an API from a Java API, which gives me an open API spec. I use Gloo Portal and its CRDs as we saw some time back, and then publish the APIs into a portal, and that's available. That API is available to the consumer, right? The consumer can just consume that using your Swagger UI, or you can use any kind of REST client, or tomorrow that's going to be GraphQL also, which is coming in soon. So you can also do the GraphQL stuff as well, so that you can get those APIs at one shot, right? From a user API developer perspective, I just develop a API and give it and make sure that I give a Swagger JSON to this. The rest of the job, I will take care of it. That's what Gloo does for you. So Gloo takes away all the heavyweight things that you do on everyday API development and cataloging kind of things, and then put them into one place, and then it kind of on a cloud native way, I should say, and then make it available for people to consume. Right. So that's where we stand right now. So probably I'll just see if there is any questions. Obviously, there's too many things that we are covering here, but that's the complexity of microservice and distributed world, right? So, but these are all not very complex things. If you just think for a second, go back and sit down and start doing stuff, you'll see that these are make your life much easier. Maybe at first you might feel, okay, these are too many CRDs, too many things I need to create. But end of the day, when you see the end result that I'm able to go from development to production in a week or in a few days, then that's going to make you and your boss happy, right? Your business is going to flourish. Even if you're running a startup, then that's going to help you a lot because more people can access your APIs pretty soon, right? So let me check if there's no more questions, right? So there are too many CRDs nowadays. Is there any IDA plugin? Okay, Sanjay, that was a great question actually. At Solo, I think, in fact, I'm personally working on to get few plugins published soon so that you don't need to write these CRDs handcrafted. Once you connect to the rest of the clusters, you can generate it by yourself. I think the VS Code right now, the VS Code Kubernetes plugin right now helps you to do this job much easily. The moment you have the CRDs on the thing, I'll show that when I show my demo. The CRDs are there on your cluster. It's going to pick it up and then it's going to use it as per pretty easily. So you don't need to write all those. You don't need to remember everything top of your head. But in fact, your question is right. Right now, we don't have any way because each CRD is specific to each of those products. For example, a pipeline or Argo CD or Tecton CD or Knative or even Kubernetes another day. So you need to have those respective plugins added to your VS Code. VS Code is the one which does this very well. Even IntelliJ to an extent does that well as well. But for Gloo, from Gloo, we are working to get one of these kind of easy to make kind of things, drag drop kind of things pretty quickly, so that you can have those things much easily for you, right? You can write those APIs very easily. You don't need to remember everything on top of your head. So, all right, great. So now we are going to get into the more interesting part, right? So we have written an API, okay? So, but if you imagine for a second, I have an API ready. I know some product, in this case, Gloo does something for me, like it takes my API and put it into production so it's cataloged and published. But how do I handle with the maintenance, right? How do I handle the maintenance, or how do I handle what should I put in a different way, the continuous delivery and continuous deployment kind of things, right? So that I keep the publishing it, something takes it up, updates the stuff, deploys the stuff, right? You need to go this because These are all standard Moron tasks that we do. We don't want to do it ourselves, make ourselves like prone for human errors, right? That's where we are going to get into what the exact demand of cloud native world is today, right? I want to do some API lifecycle management automated. Okay. So there should be some source of truth so that if something goes wrong in one shot, I'm able to go take this out and recreate a complete environment in one thing, right? Using that. That's exactly where GitOps fits into picture, right? So GitOps could be thought of like something like CD for cloud native applications, right? We are going to see how I can use GitOps, take all these things which you have done right now, a Java API, build the Java API, containerize it, and then deploy it, and then make it available to the user all at one shot at a click of a button. Okay, that's what you're going to see right now, and how to use architect for a portal and API gateways. Okay, so as I said earlier, GitOps is a way of implementing continuous deployment for cloud native applications. You can go read more about that's a wonderful site that I founded yesterday, gitops.tech. If you're going to go read there, so whatever is going to remain in a Git repository, right? Whatever all the manifests, all the CRDs, all the YAMLs, all the source code, right? Obviously, you're putting source code at Git, right? Obviously, when everything is there, then that's going to be the source of truth. When everything is there, I should be able to create my cluster in fraction of seconds, even if it goes down, right? Or even I can do a rollout and update pretty quickly. You'll see that in a fraction of seconds. How do we change from steps to step pretty easily? All right. So what I'm trying to explain right now is the picture that you see on my screen. Okay. So the API developer right now goes and publishes all the code into a Git repository. It could be GitHub, GitLabs, or whatever you want to have, right? And now I have Tecton CD. That's a Kubernetes way of native CD that's there. So it's going to pick up the changes. It's going to be a trigger that's going to get fired. And that's going to start a build process. In this case, it's going to do a Maven build. Okay. It's going to do a Maven build, containerize my application, and push my application into a container registry. Okay. That's what pay. I will see those components in a second when I get to the demo, right? And once the image is pushed into the registry, Argo CD, which is going to be a GitOps tool that we are going to use here, is going to watch for those image pushes. I'm going to configure my application saying, okay, look for something like fruits API -1.0.0 or 1.0.0 slash dash snapshot or something like that. Okay. Keep looking for them. When something happens to that, then start publishing those CRDs, right? Update my application and roll out my applications. Okay. The power of GitOps here in this case is that I'm going to, as you see this, I have both a redundant B2B and B2C clusters here. These are all Kubernetes clusters, and I'm going to deploy to them at one shot, which means that the same set of deployments is going to go to two different clusters, but in two different ways how you want to configure. Okay. So the power about this thing is that I'm not having anybody. If you see this earlier thing, only Alice is there doing the development, and there's going to be a consumer. Carlos is going to consume APIs, but in between them, you don't see anybody here, right? So there's no team, there's no human person standing here doing this job. It's all done by GitOps and CI/CD, which is going to do a continuous take these things up and deploy it into production in fraction of seconds. Okay, this is the power that we get when we kind of adopt these kind of technologies or techniques. I should not call this technologies. The techniques to deploy the APIs. All these earlier days, okay, I have to go sit down, do deployment. I have to build a Java application, put it in a jar, deploy it in a J2E application server, make it available, and somebody has to go change your routes to make this available. So there's no more concept of all those things. Okay. So you're just going to take a Java API, give me Swagger API, I will do the rest of the job for you. Okay. And I will containerize that thing for you because I know how to containerize a Java application. I'll containerize a Java application, package it, push it to my registry, and do that's all things taken care by my GitOps principles. There's a lot of things to learn about GitOps, but I've just skimmed the surface right now. Okay. As I said earlier, since everything is CRDs, it's easy, right? I just need to go kubectl apply kind of thing end of the day, right? Which is easier from a thing. And then the service gets published. The service could be used by an external consumer as well as an internal consumer. Since everything is on a cloud native Kubernetes ecosystem, it's so easy for us to knit these things together and make them work very harmoniously. Okay. Does it sound a viable approach, or is there any questions or anybody's thoughts? Probably we can hear that before I go to demo, or we can park that for the conversation. Okay. I'm just thinking of the time, like we just have 1 more hour, top of the hour right now. So these are the things that happens right now, right? We are so cool. We are just taking these stuff up, and then we are putting together all the techniques that we learned, right? This is not just Java, to be honest with you, right? Java just give the first part of thing where I just generate the API and give it to me, right? The Java's responsibility here is generate the API spec and give it to me. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it with my tool or a programming language that I'm comfortable with. In this case, I'm going to use Java, Quarkus, or Spring Boot, or any other application framework. and the other stuff for this. And the rest of the other things, how to get into the cloud native world using Kubernetes ecosystem of things and all these things is something which we take care, like the GitOps techniques take care and do the job for you. Okay, great. So let's go and jump to demo, right? So let me escape this one. Okay, I'll go back to this thing and let me show a few things what I have before we jump to the demo, right? So all these instructions which I'm going to walk through, don't worry if you miss my commands. These are all available as part of the this website. I'll put that URL in a second as part of the slide resources. I put the repository where you can find this instructions. Even if you don't have it right now, let me go to GitHub and then I should say Fruits API GitOps. Okay, that's going to be the one where you can see this one, and all the instructions are right there. Again, these are all. This is somewhere where you can go see the stuff what you want to see. 1 minute. I'm going to copy the Fruits API GitOps, and that's going to be. I'll just get the. I'll get the GitOps GitHub site for this and then publish the. Okay, there we go. We got one active environment here. Okay, I forgot, I did not see this link. Okay, and this is where you go. Okay, so I'm just going to paste this on the chat. I'll come back to your question, Sanjay, in a second. So okay, I put that link. So that's the thing which I'm going to follow right now. So this is the GitHub repository where you can go see the stuff which I created for this demo. There's still a few more updates. In case something doesn't work, please drop me an issue or something on the thing. I'm just fixing a few things to make it a little smooth and automated. So something might break for a second. So please excuse me for that. So in case you see any issue, just drop me a note or ping me, open an issue on the repository. I'll answer your questions. Okay. So let's see. Why Argo CD if you have Tecton CD? Is that just for a demo or Argo CD works? Okay. Sanjay, your question is, that was a great question. So if you imagine for a second, there are 3 different things that we saw on the thing, right? Let me go back to the slide before, because my demo is going to take few seconds. I mean, I should say a few minutes, but I want to explain this stuff what Sanjay was asking for me. If you see this picture, right? What I'm showing, let me pull this one alone.
Yeah,
So
Kamesh, you can go full screen. It'll be easier for everyone to focus.
I think I'm just loading, buddy. I think it's taking a bit of time. So
yeah, I understand that. Yeah, it's loading. I think. Yeah, play. You can go ahead.
yeah.
Meanwhile.
Okay. So if you see your Sanjay, like the things what you have here is like there are multiple different things, right? One is CI and CD, right? So usually people used to do these things together. I'm not sure how effectively how many companies did this very well, right? Very few, very handful, right? Most of the companies that CI and then there'll be a gate and somebody from ops guy hop in and then he say, okay, I'm going to publish this. But we are in a container world, things totally different, right? So in this process, Tecton CD's job is not to publish or do GitOps. Okay. GitOps is something I take from that and apply the manifest. Okay. Something has to go keep on synchronizing. Tecton CD will not do that. Tecton CD, if you imagine, is basically its job is to integrate stuff. Okay. I push a code into Git or any other repository. I build my application and make it or package my application, push it to a registry. That's all. That's CI part of it. Okay. So what we are using GitOps is a CD part of it, okay, where I do a continuous deployment. Once my image is available, okay, let me go synchronize my resources across my clusters so that my Kubernetes applications are up and running. You'll see that in a live example. At the first when you deploy, your application screw up because the image will not be there. Okay, that's where you're going to kicking Tecton triggers and then it's going to push the image into your container registry, and then that's going to be picked up by Argo CD. But Argo CD has gels well not only with Glue but with any other product that does a declarative way of manifest, Kubernetes manifest, okay, or even any other application, not necessarily Kubernetes. Okay, GitOps is not only for Kubernetes. GitOps could be used for anything, but in this case, when you talk about Kubernetes, all matters for me is the manifest, right? Your YAMLs. Okay, so anything in this case, GitOps, Argo CD takes a YAML, run a Helm chart or run something. We are going to run a Helm chart in our example, or just do a kubectl manifest or customize build or anything else you want, right? Or even OpenShift, OC apply kind of things. It's just going to do those jobs for you, right? Tecton is not do. I should say it cannot do. I should not say that way, but it's not its responsibility. Okay, that's what my point is. Okay, there should be someone who should be monitoring your thing, right? We should. It's kind of clear separation of your responsibilities. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you something, right? You'll be wondering, okay, um, I have my Java application. Why I should use Tecton to kind of build my application and deploy it? Why can't I use any kind of Java Maven plugin to kind of do this build and deploy the application, right? But if you just think for a second, we are in a microservice world. That's one thing. Second one is that why Unix or Linux became so popular and so live even today, right? Because it applies a single responsibility pattern, right? I'll do one thing well. Okay, that's what is my job. My job is not, if you take a Java Maven build, right? Maven build's job is to generate you the jar artifacts or bar artifacts or EAR artifacts, right? Its job is not to do a container build. Why should I do that? That's my, again, it's my own personal argument, but you can also give a think about it. But my, in this case, okay, my Maven's goal or Gradle's goal is just to go do Java application build. That's his responsibility and it does it well. Let's do that way. Now, Tecton CDs kind of thing, something which I need to have in a containerized world, right? In a Kubernetes world, something needs to be native Kubernetes that can understand the Kubernetes syntax and semantics to do the job. Okay, that's what Tecton does for us. So let me give that responsibility to Tecton to go do my container build. Okay, it does it step by step. I know the sequence, I know the pipeline workflow. It does it well and pushes my application into registry. Now we are separating concerns again, right? And now we come to the third part where we talk about CD, right? Continuous deployment. When I come to continuous deployment, I know that these few things are there, right? Because I'm going to use Git as my source of truth, right? That's what GitOps talks about. And then I say, okay, I apply this manifest because I assume that these images are there. That's all I know to do, right? Again, the responsibility of Argo CD in this case, synchronize the clusters, applying the manifest, what we call as applications. That's it. So now if you see this, we split these things into three different things, which makes it easier for you to kind of wire these things up. And also they does this job very well. You can pick the tools that does this particular job very well. Okay, that's the whole point. I hope I did a justice to the answer to your question, Sanjay. Let me know if you have more questions. Okay, great. Let's go back to our demo, right? So that's what we have pending here in this case. So as I said earlier, so I did a basic setup because I have to do a lot of setup here. Like I have to create the clusters, I have to deploy the respective like Tecton CD, Argo CD, and all these things available. So I did everything, kept it ready, and starting from the point that we are going to deploy the application. Okay, you can see the instructions in my repository, which talks about all those things which you have, what tools you need, how do you do your environment setup. Okay, starting from I use Ansible here to kind of do a lot of job for me. So it set up your environment. If you have a Linux shell, then it's easy for you to do all these things without any fuss. Okay, and then the repositories that we do and all these things. And the next job is where we are going to start. Okay, assuming that we already have a microservice ready, so we're going to deploy this microservice. Okay, now I have a registry. As you see here, I deleted my old registry so that I can show you how the GitOps things work here. So now my registry is ready. I'm not going to do anything here. I'm just going to push the image build using Tecton and push it here. Once it's pushed here, my application is going to get created and deploy. Okay. And finally, we'll see how do we enable my portal. Right now, my portal is not there because it does not work because it's not there. Okay. So I've cleared everything up. Okay. Great. So let's start doing that. So let me go here. I have a bunch of tasks already deployed. I say tk task ls. I say cluster one. Okay. So I have the set of tasks here, here created. Okay. I just have a Maven task that does my Maven build. And I have a git clone task that does a git clone. And then I have a builder task, which basically builds the container image. And finally, I have an OpenShift task that runs, that applies the YAMLs. But right now, I'm not going to use OpenShift in this case. I'm just going to use Maven, git clone, and builder so that my application is up, built, and pushed into my container registries. That's going to be the first job for there. Okay. So let's go and do this one. So you need a couple of more things. So since I'm using Quay, you need a Quay registered. You need to have a Quay user ID and Quay password. Probably you can register yourself and get, or you can use a different repository for that case. Okay. The very first thing what we need here is that I need to get the proxy IP. Okay. So what is that? Okay. Let me show what I have in a Gloo namespace. Okay. So let me go to my cluster, and I go to my cluster here and go to the Gloo namespace. Okay. There's a Gloo system namespace. There's a Gloo port where Gloo Portal is deployed. And if you see this, there's a bunch of deployments that happen here, which does this proxy. You written about one proxy. This is an API gateway proxy that is deployed here, and you will have a corresponding service for the proxy also available for you. Okay, so that's one which is exposed to this IP. This is called as a gateway proxy, right? That's exactly what we require for us to access the APIs right now. I'm going to use my get the API access IP. Let me go there. Okay, I copy paste. I need to do something with my terminal, right? There's a lot of sometimes it causes a lot of CPU usage. I don't know why. Okay, I'm ready with that. And then if I say echo gateway proxy IP, I should get the same 74.220.23.37. Exactly the same IP that we see here, right? 23.37, right? So we now got the first thing that we need here. And now I'm just going to start applying the trigger. What's trigger, right? The trigger is basically the one which you saw earlier, right? So I need to have a way by which when I push something into my Git repository, I should trigger a Tecton pipeline for me. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a bunch of triggers and then the respective service accounts that is required for the triggers to run on my Kubernetes cluster, right? I got a webhook. I'll show how the webhook works also. So we get all these Tecton things created here. I'm not going deep into this Tecton because that itself is its own thing, right? And then let's see if my Tecton pipeline is up. Let's go back to my pods, and I should see a Tecton pipeline up on my default namespace. So let's wait for some time. Okay, so let's get this context and see if we have our pipeline up and running here. Okay, the webhook got created, and then you'll see if it's waiting for the things to be done. We wait for the rollout to be finished. Okay, I'll refresh this once. Okay, there's a webhook deployment is there. The replica failure is there, and let me check what the replica failure is there. Okay, let me go restart this. It's still progressing. Let me see what happens to this one. Let me see if there is the pods. What happened to the pods? They should technically go see the pods here. That's what, nothing should work very smoothly, right? So there should be some problem somewhere. Okay.
Cause of demo gods.
So I tried this for many times since yesterday. I was hoping that these things should work. But okay, let's go and do the other thing. Let's wait for this to come up. Okay. So and then once I do this, I have to use this thing to kind of register my login to my Argo CD. So that's what I'm going to do right now. And then apply these thing, right? I'm just going to do apply Argo CD things here. Okay. I'm going to log in there. Okay. I switched the context and then finally I just need to go add the so I logged in here. I'm on the management context. So there are multiple contexts, right? We saw two different Kubernetes clusters, in fact, three for the picture that I showed you, right? So right now I'm just trying to log in and then adding my GitOps repository here so that when I go to my Argo CD and then go to my repositories, I should see the repository right here, right? The git.kamesh.dev. That's exactly the repository where I have my GitOps thing, where you see a bunch of YAMLs and other thing. I'll show that in a second. And then the API, the Fruits API that we developed some time back, right? What we saw using our Java API that we developed. So both things are there. So that's what we did right now. And then I'm going to go create the application right now. Okay. So this is the Argo CD application. I'm going to deploy that into cluster one, right? That's what I call as a target cluster. You saw two different clusters, the B2C, B2B clusters. Imagine one of them as cluster one. And then I'm going to deploy these things right there, right? So that the clusters have them right up and running there. Okay. So while this happens, okay. The plugins that I use for my ZSH is kind of eating my CPUs. I should start to dig into that to see, take off a few things out. Okay. I use them for convenience, but it's kind of eating my memory many times. Okay. So now the Argo CD application should be created. When I go back to Argo CD, you should see the application right up here. Okay, let's give some time. Okay, you see this here, it's synced, but unfortunately, you will see one error here. The application will not work well, and then you should see a hard break here, right? You see an error image pull because I don't have the image here. Okay, you see the error image pull because when I go to my query repository, I don't have the image at all here. Okay, that's what you're going to do right now. Okay, the image is not there, so I cannot push this image. Okay, so that's what we're going to do right now. So let me go here and let's see what happened to our webhook, right? So that, okay, so the webhook is still having some issues. It says replica failure. I don't know why it is saying that. Okay, otherwise I have to start the pipelines manually. Okay, let me go do that. Okay, the triggers are not working. I have to go do that manually. Okay, so let's go there and then create the application. We did this one and we need to trigger a pipeline. That's exactly what you're going to do right now, which is not working in my case. So let me go see if I have the pipelines ready. Okay, TK. Okay, I know what should be the issue because my templates are not there. Okay.
So Kamesh, it's basically that the CI pipeline was not triggered and you want to do it manually, right? There is absolutely no issue with the CD pipeline. Am I correct?
Yes, I think I know what the problem I got. I missed the triggers rely on a set of templates. Okay, for that to do that, right? For example, what I mean by that is
Got it.
in technical we have pipelines, we have triggers, we have other things, right? So basically, what should I have done before deploying the listener, the trigger as well, is that I have to create those templates, right? What I mean by that is, let me go and show that live. Okay. People like who are not aware of Tecton, please excuse me for these things. So, okay, I have one pipeline here, what I call as a fruit API pipeline. Okay. So what this pipeline basically does is going to go pull the image, pull the git clone, does a git clone here, fetch the repository and run a Maven build. Okay. And then does a Maven test another day and pushes the image into the query repository, which I showed you here, right? That's exactly what this particular stuff does for you. Okay. And the template is basically, this is the template for my trigger to do, right? We created a trigger. I got a webhook listener here. I got a trigger template. This trigger is basically uses a pipeline, right? So this pipeline is basically is going to leverage my Tecton Fruit API's trigger template, right? So template is going to be there and this template is going to use a pipeline. Okay. So that's where I need to go find a pipeline and then run a Tecton pipeline here. Okay. So that's what it does. So that's exactly what was missing in my case, if I understand correctly. So let me see. Let me go ahead and apply this again and see if that works. Otherwise, we'll trigger it manually. Okay. So I'm just going to go apply this here again. Now I build triggers and apply to context one. I hope this picks up right now. Okay, I have the webhook configured right now. Well, because this is a very quick pod that should come up very fast. Okay, that's great. So we have the webhook right now running. Okay, this is the Gitty webhook. What I basically try to do right now is I connected my Fruits API here. And this Fruits API is going to go to my settings. I'll just go to the settings and I have a webhook. Basically, this webhook is going to kind of trigger the stuff for us, right? So if you go to webhook, this is a standard one. It's a don't use HTTP in production. This is a demo. That's the reason why I'm using HTTP. So this is connected to our webhook, right? If you imagine here, if you go to this services here, obviously you'll see the services. The webhook has a service that is deployed here. I'm just kind of connecting that particular service here, right? Using this webhook. Okay, that's what I'm trying to do here. All right. So let's go here. As part of the next step, if you go here, I want to trigger the pipeline. Okay, so that the build starts and the application gets rolled out, right? So we still see this, the heartbroken fruits API here. So let's go make this work a little bit good, right? So what I'm going to do right now is go and do a test delivery. I just trigger, or you can push something, build and push it to a repository. That should also work. But since I had already a workload available, I'm just doing this build and push, and it should go. I think that's right? So probably. So I had this delivery done. So and then if you go to my command line, so let's go and see this command line. What happened here? Let me move this, close this one. This is not needed. Okay, or I'll minimize this. Okay. Okay. TK, I'll just shift to the context as I saw in my instructions. So these things are again all in the instructions. So let's go and see what all the things we have here. And you should see one pipeline that is running. Okay, so that's the logs-f. And if you put this pipeline, this is basically the pipeline that builds your Fruits API. This is quite familiar for us as Java developers. It should be doing a Java build right now on a Maven build. Okay, it clones the resources and starts building the API right now and start to do that. Let's give few minutes. I think since I already cached the Maven artifacts, but still at times it goes and pulls the stuff out. Mostly it should be much faster. Like it's downloading from a local repository that I have on my cluster where I cached all the Maven artifacts. It's kind of doing a Maven build right now. So if you imagine for a second, what we did right now is that we went ahead and updated our repository, pushed an API update, and we tested a webhook trigger so that like it goes triggers a pipeline and the pipeline gets started. And soon what should happen is that the pipeline is going to push the image into the repository. The moment the image is available on the repository, we should see the Argo CD pipeline syncing the application again. So this is the difference I was talking about earlier, right? CI pushes the thing into the image, right? Image registry, okay? Okay, and then what happened is your CD that's going to push this out, pull the image in, and then synchronize your clusters with the state based on what's available on my GitHub repository. Okay, in my GitHub repository, I just have a Helm chart to deploy this Fruits app application. So that's pretty much I have. It's nothing, no Greek and Latin there. Okay, so which is driven by a few parameters. All right. So let's check that out.
Kamesh, sorry for interruption. What is the screen you see here? What kind of performance monitoring thing is this?
This one is the Argo CD thing here. Okay, so this is the Argo CD UI.
Okay, is it something similar to the performance monitoring thing like New Relic kind of, or?
No. This one is just monitors your clusters, Kubernetes clusters, and the application that you deployed via GitOps. Okay. So
okay.
Here in this case, we use Argo CD as one of the tools. There is another tool called as Flux CD. There are multiple tools to do GitOps. Okay. I use Argo CD, which is quite popular in the Kubernetes world, and there's a lot of features. And Flux CD is also coming up. It's a CNCF project again. So those are the things which you use here, right? And you saw right now on my screen, there is a image push is happening right now from my pipeline. Okay, I'm pushing the image to Quay.io, my repository, Fruits API 1.0.0 snapshot. And in a few seconds, you should see the image up there in the repository. Okay, let's go refresh that and see. Okay, let's wait for the push to complete. So now you saw the sequence, right? So now there is no hand, right? So I just deployed a few things beforehand, but usually in a typical production scenario, you would have kept all these things set up already, right? You don't need to interfere it every time. Okay. So that's what we do right now. We are just pushing the image and the image is getting written to your thing and we are done. Okay. The build is successful. And if I go to my repository, you should see the image pushed here. There should be 1.0 snapshot available here. Okay. I hope it comes soon. Okay, we got this one. This was a few seconds ago. And then when you go back to a repository and let's see the progress happening here. You should see the sync happening in a few seconds. Okay, you should have a new pod that gets rolled out because I have an image push happened right now, and this pod should make me do the job, right? So let's not wait for that. Interest of time, let me go do a refresh. Okay, when I do a refresh right now, I'm just kind of refreshing my entire state, and I should soon see the application getting deployed in a second. Okay, you see this one coming up and sync. Okay, So this gets automatically done, but I'm kind of doing the manual thing so that we see them immediately. Okay. Reset demo. Come on. Hard refresh. Okay, let me see. Let me wait for a few more seconds. I'm seeing there is some kind of network latency at my side as well. Okay. So let's do one more refresh. Hard refresh. It's not even picking up my hard refresh today. Okay, just do another sync. Okay, and I think it picked up. Okay, you see here. Okay. Usually this happens automatically. There is some network delays at my side. So now it picks up the new one. It tries to pull the image from the repository and then kind of deploys that so that your application is available for you in a fraction of seconds. Okay. So that's it. The application is running right now. So if I go to my cluster and then you should see the Fruits API service is active. And if I go to the pod should also be ready in a second, the Fruits API thing, which is running in a best effort thing. Okay. And we should see a bunch of these Fruits API. These are all the CI thing which happened in Tecton, right? Those things got pushed in. Okay. So our application state should be healthy right now. Okay. Let me see what I have here. KCTX. I'll change the cluster one. Okay, let me check the pods. And I should be having my pods. Okay, there is one here, and then there is a PostgreSQL containers getting created. So let's wait for that. And there is an image pullback off. I don't know why it's still there. So should be able to get the image. Okay, it's getting a crash loop back off because my Postgres pod is taking some time to get created. Okay, probably that's because of my PVC thing. Okay, get PVC. It's bound right now, but still my pods. Okay, the Fruits API is still having a problem because my Postgres pod has not come up. So that is where it's taking time. Okay, let's go with other things, right? So this is what happens when I go and synchronize stuff here, right? The stuff is getting synchronized here. My pods is available. And the next one, what we basically do is like we just go and do the other stuff which is available there, right? So we'll go and say, okay, I want to enable the portal right now. So that's what we are talking about, right? The Gloo Portal. So I'm just going to change these parameters to true. Okay, that's what I'm going to do here, which is my local Git thing, which I'm doing right now. And then I add this, push this change to my GitOps repository, right? So which is a local one. Bjug demo. Okay, and then I push this one to my. Okay, I just push this to my dev repository. Git push dev main. Okay, so let's go check what happens here. So is the PostgreSQL up or not? Okay, the API is still having problem. Okay, it's still saying there's a problem with this pod. Okay, it is hanging. Maybe my cloud provider is having some issues with the PVC. Okay, so now when I do a synchronize here, so now you should see the out of sync happening, and then you should see a bunch of API docs, Fruits API and Fruit API dev, everything got created for you. Unfortunately, I'll not be showing them connected because until the Postgres pods comes up, my application will not be running. Okay, let me go delete this and see if that triggers something. Okay, so that it creates from the first. Okay, I can delete the APIs and then let me see if it gets created soon. Okay, because this is the Fruits API is dependent on this part. Okay, but the idea here is that when I pushed my the changes to roll out the portal, right? You saw all these things coming up here, right? So you have the Fruits API doc, you have the Fruits API dev environment, we have the API portal, everything coming up. But and then when I go here and then see the stuff, right? Unfortunately, I'll not be seeing the API, sadly. When I go see the refresh this one, I should see the portal APIs coming up here. Okay, let's give some time. It's rolling out. Okay, you saw the portal come up because we just did that, just syncing the APIs. But unfortunately, it'll fail here because this depends on the API thing. Okay, so because since the API is not ready, it's not able to pull the thing, right? If I go check the logs of this, they should say get portal. Okay, it should say that it's not able to talk to the service. Okay, because the service is not up. Okay, so let me get API products, API docs. Okay, the API docs say that it's not able to talk to the service, the Fruits API service. You see this here. That's the reason why I'm not able to see the portal, is because the service which needs to send me a Swagger JSON is down right now. Okay, that's what happening here. So I expect this to clear, but unfortunately it is taking too much time. I don't know why. Let me see what's happening with that. Okay, get events.
So while Kamesh tries to is probably going to go and talk to his cloud provider, given the way the cloud provider is becoming unreliable. Any questions from the audience? I saw a couple of interesting discussions happening in the chat. Pramod, there was a session on Argo CD, but it was not at Bangalore Jug. It was, I believe, from the EPAM community. So I'm not sure we don't have a recording of it, but you can probably reach out to on the registration page and see where the recording is available.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Okay.
Okay. There was a question from Vani. Yes, Quarkus is production ready, and Red Hat also has a supported Quarkus available. You can just check with Red Hat people to see that, and even if you use the community one, that's also production ready. Okay. And then Gloo Portal, no, Gloo Edge is similar to APG and not Gloo Portal. So Gloo Portal is just an add-on that we give on top of that to do all these things, just like how to expose in APIs. Unfortunately, that did not work today because of the underlying provision. Persistent volume is not getting ready for my thing. Okay, so that's what is happening. Let me because I need the API thing. You see this attached volume fail. The volume attachment fail here. So because of some deadlines, I think it's a delay at the provider side or something. Submitted the backend. Is still there. Right? That's where the problem is starting, right? So that's where the Postgres is not getting created. Because of that, my API is not getting created. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
No, not an issue.
Yeah.
One other observation. So if you have to do a like for like or an apples to apples comparison, you would probably look at the APG developer portal, which also gives you a way to expose your APIs if you're looking for like as to what the Gloo portal is. I think that's right.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And to answer Sanjay's question, Sanjay, in fact, Gloo has a lot more features than what APG offers right now. It can also has filters. We can do WASM, WebAssembly filters, which is something which is catching up right now, where you can write your own filters and plug it into, because the backing thing for API gateway is Envoy. So whatever you can do with Envoy, you can do here also. It comes with logging, monitoring, integration with the Datadog, or any kind of other things also possible. The other thing which we also do with Gloo is that we will be able to communicate to heterogeneous environments, what we call as a backends. For example, I was showing a Kubernetes service here. You can connect to Lambda, you can connect to Google Functions, you can connect to other stuff which is there. I think, and then but it will be done only through your thing, right? For example, when you're on to Lambda, right? I'm taking Lambda example. You might have a rate limit, or you might have charges when you hit the Lambda service, right? So we can restrict those charges right before the Gloo itself. so that like you can validate, do all the necessary validation, and then if you make sure, send it to AWS, right? In that way, you can protect your cost as well. And if you heard about, I'm speaking of the Java thing, if you heard about your the log4j thing, which happened last month, right? So it was so easy to fix that for our Glue customers, because all you have to do is a WAF, web application firewall. We just added that filter on top of our Glue, and then it protected all their backend systems just for fraction of seconds, because it's Envoy on Kubernetes. Just apply that, it will pick up the thing out, right? I think get PVC, it still works. I think, Saurabh, but the problem I'm seeing here is that the backend provider, the storage provider for the cloud, they have not, it's taking some time to get allocated the thing, right? So I just took KGPV. See that PVs get allocated here, okay? But I'm not getting a new PV created, okay? That's what the thing happened. See, there is some slowness somewhere, okay? Everything is bound, it says bound, but I don't know why my Postgres pod is not able to take that up, okay? So that's what I see. If I get the events, the event says that it's failed to attach the volume, right? That is what is happening. There should be something related to the backend stuff, okay, to the thing. All right. So that's where you get this thing, right? Once you get this portal, the portal should be there. I'll try to see once I fix that up. I'll try to record that up and then share it with you guys, so that you can see how this works. Okay. One last chance. I can also delete. Let me go to my cloud provider. And then let me stop sharing for a second while the question is there. I'll just try to see if I can delete my existing PVCs, right?
Sure, Kamesh. Yeah. Any other questions from anyone? Please do, you can unmute yourself and discuss any other questions, any thoughts. Please do go ahead. I agree with Kamesh's initial observation that at times it might seem a bit overwhelming, but that is how cloud native applications have evolved over time. And I at least have a view that it's like, there's no one single way of doing cloud native way. It depends on what your requirements are. Yes, Sanjay. So I believe the enterprise edition is specifically for enterprise customers. For Glue, there's a very cool community edition, and you can obviously take it for a spin. I'm sure you'll find, I think I checked out the site once. I'll check it out and give you a link on, where you can take Glue Edge, the community one, at least for
yeah, I think whatever I showed you, I showed you a little bit of more enterprisey features, but the community one has most of the features that I showed you today. You can just go try that down, and then probably I'll also put this thing on the chat. HTTPS workshops.solo.io. So if you go here, this is the public workshops. You can go take these workshops and try it out yourself, running the things again. I think, unfortunately, I see the cloud provider is having some degradation on their volumes. That's the reason why I'm not able to get my things, and I would allow to show that to you guys, because that's a nice thing which I want to complete this thing off with that thing, right? And it says unable to attach or mount a volume. Okay. There is something wrong behind the scenes for the cloud provider. Anyways,
so yeah, go ahead, Kamesh.
Sorry. Good. I think there was some question you were answering from Sanjay, right? Yeah.
I was trying to answer a question, Sanjay. Sanjay, I would like to understand what are you. I know I have also had an opportunity to work with traffic. What are you trying to do with traffic where you're facing a problem with SSL and authentication, or rather authorization?
Yeah, so I'm trying to set up the SSL like locally. It's not working. Like let's encrypt SSL.
Okay, that usually traffic shouldn't give that a problem. Using a default config.
I'm not exposed. Actually, I've not exposed the whatever I'm running to the internet. So if I could do that, like it's pretty straightforward. But my everything is on local, right? And I cannot expose the port to the internet. Again, have to get static IP from internet service provider or so don't want that particular headache.
I think SSL and other stuff. I should say honestly, it's not that I work for Gloo, but with Envoy, which is the backing platform for Gloo, it's super easy to attach an SSL. So I think even if self-signed certificates, we do that at a lot of workshops. I think I pasted that workshop link on the chat, Sanjay. You can just take a look at the Gloo Edge workshop. We have a dedicated SSL, TLS or Z sections there. Okay, you can just see that, and it's damn easy to go and attach a certificate, just fraction of seconds. I can just turn my HTTP traffic into HTTPS traffic. Just try it out, and please ping me if you have any, if you want more details. I'm happy to discuss that with you.
You're referring to the Gloo Edge workshop, right, Kamesh, when you're talking about the SSL?
Right, Gloo Edge workshop. That's right. That's right. That's right. I think I pasted that on the chat, and probably
Yeah, it's there, very much there. It basically the workshops dot solo drive open up everything else. So I'll paste the Gloo Edge workshop here so that it's specific link there.
Yeah, and Sanjay, I think just to answer your thing, thanks for your trust on Sol and Glue. I think we are even, as I told you, right, we are getting the GraphQL thing also soon on, so that your GraphQL endpoints, you can automatically convert your GraphQL endpoints in OpenAPI spec and do all those lot of magics behind the scene. So once it is up, probably I'll just post something on the BJUG group so that you can have a look at that.
Thank you.
So, but there's lots and lots of stuff to try it out, and we have even bought in transformations and all of the stuff, header transformations, body transformations. So many cool things have come into the last few releases, and then we are adding few more soon. That makes it more interesting as well. So just give a try and let me know if you have anything. Right?
Kamesh, just out of curiosity, what would be a business use case of transforming a GraphQL into an open API spec?
That's a great question. Let me think of that. On the case, right? I think there are some cases where whatever we heard from very few customers who use GraphQL today. So what they want, they still want their services via the proxy to be proxied to the GraphQL backends. Okay, that's what their whole idea is, right? And for that, like, we need to have a way by which to understand the GraphQL schema and then on their URIs, and then make it available as part of what we call in Glue as upstreams and routes. So make it available as part of that so that your end user can consume it. Okay, you don't need to go, because otherwise there is a lot of I think wiring that you need to do to make these things work, right? For example, if we take the same example of API fruits, right? I'm using here in this example, I'm using a REST based thing, right? Let's say I don't want to use REST, I just want to use get only the blueberry thing right here. I still use the same URL, API/fruits. But end of the day, what happens, that translates your call into a GraphQL call and gives a call to the backend and gets a response and send it back to you. So you don't need to do that job by yourself.
Okay, so basically the effort of the front end to look at the graph and traverse it is basically taken away, you're saying, kind of way.
Right, exactly. Okay. Okay, that's it.
Okay, I get it. It's like whenever we have low-powered, front end apps, and where you you still want to use the same schema, but the consuming channel changes. It kind of can play a role.
That is exactly. That's what, right? That's where we said, right? We have been doing that for many things, right? For example, converting your REST call into Lambda call, or converting your REST call into Google functions or Azure functions. Okay, we have been doing all those things behind the scenes. Now we add a GraphQL to this, so that from the user perspective, it's just one gateway to get into all your services, but you can go and talk to heterogeneous environments behind the scenes. We will cover those things as part of your configuration, so that the end user or a consumer, at the end of the day, API consumer, doesn't worry about that particular stuff. Okay, so that's what the whole idea is. Okay. And there was a question what provider I used. I think the provider I used is called a CVO. CVO is kind of gives you a very cheap clusters, Kubernetes clusters based on C3. So this is a thing. So you get a $250 credit as well for this. Okay, so I'm just putting that thing on the chat. If you are interested in getting some
publicly, what do you say, for example, somebody who's interested in doing Kubernetes development on their own. Okay,
right. This is a lightweight cluster, right? You get usually if you see GKE, AKS, and all these things, right? They take a bit of time for you to get the clusters up, okay? Because there is, I think the fastest one has always been GKE, okay? At least it takes 25 minutes for you to get the cluster. But with CO, like you can get the clusters, let's say in 2-3 minutes, easily. It runs using K3s, which is a lightweight version of Kubernetes. That's from Rancher, so it uses that behind the scenes to run the cluster. But that's where I think I hit a bump today. Probably usually I did not see, because when I tested all these things yesterday night, it worked very well. Probably I hit on a wrong day. Maybe there's a maintenance or something going behind the scenes. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it still says, it still says it's not able to attach the volume. Okay. When it gets into this loop, it's hard to come out of that. Okay. Anyways, that's fine. All right. So is there any other questions? I'll happy to maybe like next time, and I'll record a video and send it across once things get this thing right. GKE takes max 5 minutes. It depends upon the size of cluster. Okay. EKS is okay. AKS is very bad. So that's in my experience. Like it takes 40 to 45 minutes for you to get a 3-node cluster. So GKE again, Sanjay, I think it depends upon the size of the cluster and number of nodes you put and all these things, right? I'm saying 3 nodes. Let's say N1 standard 8 kind of thing, right? So, but AKS is pretty slow, and EKS is next, and the GKEs are, they are the pioneers in that, so obviously they do that well. Okay. Anyways, that's great. So I think I want to share this one also, right? I think I shared that slide. So there's a SoloCon thing which you can go there. You can do this, and also I just put this thing also on the chat. Solo.io. So you also run a lot of workshops. If you're happy to attend those workshops, please do run. We run public workshops. If you want the workshops to be run for your particular organization, please do get in touch with me. I'll be happy to run the workshops for you with completely provisioned environment. You just need to come with a browser. That's all. Okay. You can try. You can try everything by yourself online. And we also have lots of open positions. Please do take a check out this particular thing. And if something interests you on thing, please do let me know. I'll be happy to refer you guys to the openings which you are interested in. Okay.
Just a question, Kamesh. The workshops are what is the average duration of a workshop?
Usually we made it as 3 hours, but usually it doesn't take 3 hours. It takes somewhere between 90 minutes to say 2 hours maximum. Okay. So let's keep 2 hours as a thing, right? So and then we have an online environment for everything. So we just provision the environment beforehand when you technically let me know how many participants will be there. Okay. So all the participants require is just they come with a thing where we have a Chrome browser running on yourself and you're all good. That's it.
But that's for an enterprise. But if we like say there's an individual developer interested, in that case, if they come for a workshop, it's like
usually for one individual. If you have a group of developers, for example, Bangalore JAG, if you get some requests from 10 to 15 people saying, okay, we want to do a workshop on Glue Edge. Okay. Just take an example. Then I would definitely can go set the things up in one of our JAG sessions and run it through. Okay. As a thing, right? But outside that, we cannot do a provision of workshop environment for a developer as of today. So we are working on something because of the cloud cost and other thing involved behind the scenes. So for now, if you want to provision an environment outside, then for at least you should have 10 to 15 people. I'm happy to do if it's 10 to 15 people. I can do it myself, right? But if it's 1 or 2 developers, we don't usually do that.
No, that's absolutely understandable, Kamesh. I was just interested if there's a kind of a sign-up option, which is perfectly fine, because there are challenges for every organization, with every year.
I think we don't have that yet, but we are planning. Soon we should be having it sometime so that the developers can go try it out themselves. Okay, but as of now, we just do only for enterprises. And if you have a group of developers, like a meetup group or something, where they're interested in doing, they want to know about this, then I can go ahead and do the job, provision the environment and give it for them. So that's the thing. Okay. So please do the SoloCon. It's again free. Here you get it for free. That's one thing where you can try it out. So we are introducing few other things, right? The GraphQL one is also there. We are introducing a GraphQL workshop, EBBF workshop. That's more thing. I think even I have to attend the workshop to know more about it. And then Istio workshops, and then a certifications, as I told earlier, right? Once you get there, you're good to get certified yourself. Yes, Sanjay, you can run it on your laptops. All you need is that just explore on the workshop. There'll be instructions to set up kind clusters. Just set up or Docker any kind of mini cube or whatever you want. Set them yourself up by yourself, and then start from the sections which says that, okay, deploy glue or something like that. So that's where you need to start from. So the workshop instructions are usually tailored for the provision environment, right? So just keep the provisioning the environment, provision it yourself, and start it yourself. Okay. So just be aware. So if you attend these workshops in SolarCon, you get these certificates for free. So you don't need to pay for that. In SolarCon is free for registration. Please to go ahead and do that and try to see if you can get these badges on for you, right? So on eBPF, fundamentals, experts, and then foundation Istio, expert Istio, etc., etc. Okay, there's a good chance that you can get yourself a nice certificate as well from Solo.